Hello and welcome to the Great Northern Game Night. I'm your host, Tony.
I'm your co-host, Matt.
We are here to talk about video games. We have pretty specific topics in mind today. We're going to be talking less about specific games and more about like concepts in general, I think. So the first thing that we wanted to do is we touched on it a little bit last week. I wanted to talk a little bit more about eSports and the potential of eSports as like a future job. Things like that. So for those people that don't know, a couple weeks ago, a Dota 2 tournament happened, and there was, $6.6 million on the line for the people that finished in first place.
A lot of money, a lot of money.
And so the team that won that actually, just recently, I think sometime last week, they released one of their players. They kind of, from what you'll read on like Reddit and Twitter, it was kind of just like sprung on him last minute. He didn't realize that he was getting kicked off the team, and then he was kicked off the team.
I wonder if they had any second thoughts. Like, was this a thing that they had been intending to do before the final game, and then they kind of just broke it to him afterwards? Because if it was, and they won with him on the team, right? I wonder if any of them thought like, maybe we should kind of hold off. Let's think about this again, or if it was sort of a long time coming.
I have no idea. It seems strange that they were like a powerhouse throughout the entire tournament. Like they never looked bad at any point, really. So it's really kind of weird. And the speculation on what happened is one of their players. If you don't know anything about the Dota scene, I'll try and like not involve any specific terms because I know that you don't really know anything about the Dota scene.
Yeah, that's good because I don't. Not at all.
The person who plays their main, like the character that gets all the items and kills everyone on the other team, like that's his job to kind of he's the carry. It's his job to carry the game. He has had arm injuries previously, like repetitive stress injuries, because he's been playing Dota for like 11 years. But so he is switching to a different role, I guess. And their team is going to be picking up someone who is arguably the best carry in Dota 2 right now. Everything's arguable when it comes to ranking players, but so they needed to either drop this player who's switching to the support role, basically, or drop their previous support. And the previous support had been with the organization not quite as long as the person who was carry and is switching to support.
Yeah.
But now this brings up some serious issues and flaws with the esports model right now that I think of, and it's becoming more like a job. It's a viable job at this point. I mean, these people are making their living playing these games, but they're missing a whole lot of things that you get as a worker. Like these people, they don't have health care or anything.
You're talking like job security?
Yes, I'm talking like
Okay.
all sorts of things that you would expect as a worker, like basic insurance. I mean, there's no union, so I don't know that they sign contracts. So at any point, something like this could happen. They could, win a tournament and they're riding a high horse, and then the captain of the team doesn't like one of the players on the team, so they get kicked off because the captain holds a lot of sway. And there was even, I believe there was a post by the manager of this team that said, I was not involved in this decision. I left this in the hands of the team, and the decision was made by the team. Why? Isn't that your job to make these? That should be a manager's job to make these sort of decisions. You don't leave that in the hands. Like, you can't. A bunch of workers at a job can't pool together and decide to fire one of their coworkers. Like,
well,
that's
I wonder
not.
if it's a thing like when this team started, and as you pointed out, I don't know anything about Dota really. I don't know anything about the history of this team, but was this team initially put together as just a bunch of guys that were buddies and they like playing, MOBAs together or whatever, and they decided to go pro? Or were they actually, scouted or recruited or something like that? Do you know how that works?
This is a recruitment thing, basically. So what happens is, like, a team will perform poorly at a tournament or something, and they'll decide, hey, maybe we're not the best team. And a lot of times it's an amicable thing, like a team will disband. They'll say, like, hey, we're not really working well together. This isn't working out. Let's just go our separate ways. So then you've got 5 talented players that are free agents, and maybe like someone on your team decided they didn't want to play anymore. So it's kind of like sports teams in that regard. But there's a lot of like there's not much in terms of like looking out for the players. Because I mean Valve isn't doing it. It's not their job to do it. But they're the ones running these tournaments. I mean, the tournament organizers aren't doing it. Clearly, the managers of the teams don't have much say in this either. And in some ways, I can understand because you don't want to force, 4 players on your team to play with a person that they don't want to play with. They're going to perform poorly, like, period. But in this case, I mean, clearly this person was cut because they saw, ooh, that's a really good player. They're a free agent now. We want to get them. And it seems like there's no protection for that. I mean, I don't know how the contracts work, but clearly this person was not under any sort of contract that guaranteed them a spot on this team. Yeah. So there's a lot of money coming into this business for these teams, but the players aren't really protected at all. And I think that until that step is made, I mean, it's not really super viable as a job.
I think that kind of thing will probably take place when it becomes a lot more profitable to actually like run tournaments and stuff like this, and it goes back to what I was saying last week, comparing it to regular sports, selling tickets, filling stadiums, that kind of thing. Because then people who own and run the teams will be a lot more, okay, we got to look after these guys. These guys are making us money, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like that. Doesn't seem like it's really happening at this stage in esports, not yet.
It's I will say I was a little bit incorrect, and I'm remembering now. It's actually Valve that is kind of stepping up in this regard, but I don't know that they're necessarily doing it for player interests as much as they are for the interests of their own tournaments. They're actually Dota 2 has a roster lock that is happening, I believe, at the beginning of next month, because Valve has supported a bunch of these major tournaments that used to be put on by other people, like MLG has a Dota tournament. There's an ESL tournament, which is run by ESL, but a lot of these major tournaments are getting funding from Valve now, and they're going to be part of like a series of majors that leads up to this tournament that they run. So it's like a season almost, but they're making it so that you have to lock your roster before any of these majors start. And if you change your roster, you can't go. So like you can't take a player out and put another player in and still have your team go to this tournament. Like you have to have the same roster for these tournaments. And there's subs, like all these teams have a couple substitutes that are usually their coaches, and then they can step in if there's like an issue that really needs to be resolved. But it doesn't really feel like Valve is doing this to protect the players so much as to ensure that, people don't poach a bunch of really good players right before their major tournament to try and win it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's mutually beneficial though.
It is.
They could do it for their own interests, but if it works for the players as well, then everybody's happy, right?
It is, but at the same time, it's really inflexible. So the big problem here is, I mean, that huge tournament just ended like a week and a half ago, and you've got like less than a month now before the rosters lock. You have less than a month to decide, okay, this is the team we want for the rest of the year. And without any kind of like smaller scale tournaments, it's really hard to tell if you're going to synergize well on that team, especially if it's like people that have never played together before. A lot of these Dota pros have played with each other in like more casual settings before. It's a pretty tight-knit group. Even like at this point, I mean, one of the teams that the player that got kind of like brought into this team and is basically the reason the other person got the boot. He's considered one of the best carries in Dota. He was playing for a European team actually, and he's an American. So we're kind of reaching a point where these teams are intermingling. There's a lot of that actually. There's like there'll be like Chinese teams that have like a Malaysian player on them or something. And that was actually in past years that was a really big like Chinese people didn't want to root for these teams because they weren't all Chinese teams. So
fucking race traders.
There was this team around like the International 1 and International 2 times called Team DK, and they had I think a Singaporean player and a Malaysian player on them, and they were like the most hated team in China. Like Chinese people would rather root for European teams than this team because they were technically a Chinese team. They were based in China. Their team captain was Chinese. They were run by Chinese people, but they did not have all Chinese players. And that's just like that's kind of like a like an ingrained sort of thing for China.
like a cultural thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a
I could
cultural
see that.
issue. But like it feels like if they're not already doing like some kind of contract thing, then that's definitely the next step that it needs to go to. And I think the big issue with that is a lot of these sponsors don't just want to pay these players to exist on a team, which we talked about this a little bit. League of Legends has a completely different model. The creators of League of Legends, Riot, are basically paying these teams that are in their season not like a lot of money, but a livable wage
Something.
just to play. It doesn't matter how they do, really. But I feel like still in Dota, most of the money is coming from tournament wins. The sponsors are giving them like computers and computer chairs to sit in, but they're not really, helping pay
They're not
their
paying
rent.
their wages. Yeah.
So it breeds this kind of situation where the Dota 2 environment is like you have to win or you're not making money, which is leading to, teams disbanding if they go to one tournament and have a bad showing. They're out. They're like, we can't do this because, if we lose another tournament, that's, several months that we're not really making money.
Yeah, it's like the talent show style tournament where there's just prizes,
Yeah.
and you're not actually being paid to run. You got to win.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that that's kind of an issue. And that I feel like it needs to be resolved before these rosters are really going to be consistent. Because, I mean, I don't follow League of Legends much. I've been playing they have like a fantasy draft that you can do with League of Legends, which it's like fantasy football basically, but for League of Legends. So I don't really follow League of Legends all that much. I haven't played it in a few years, but I do that with my friends every once in a while, just the fantasy league, just for fun. And recently there's been a little bit of a shakeup. A lot of Korean players from League of Legends are coming over and playing on North American teams. But for the most part, those rosters are really stable. At least throughout the season, they're completely stable usually.
Yeah.
Like once in a while, a team will replace someone if they don't feel like they're performing. But most of the roster shakeups happen in the off season, basically, in League of Legends. So it's a lot more like consistent thing. People can actually earn like a livable wage. And I mean, with Dota 2, it's go big or go home. You're earning $6 million or you're earning like 50,000. And like
for the team, yeah.
Yeah. And that's those are like the discrepancies. Like there were matches in the most recent international that were deciding whether a team got a guaranteed $3 million or a guaranteed like $800,000. So there were matches that were being played that were worth like $2 million, and these weren't even finals matches. These were just random matches throughout the bracket. And to me, it seems like, so you got 16 mil, or maybe it was 18 million. I don't remember the final prize pool for the International 5. I feel like the teams would be a lot happier if you took that money, made like $1 million of it the prize pool for that tournament, and then distributed the remaining amount of that money throughout the season to these majors and to these teams so that these players could actually live without, if they get 4th place at a tournament, they're not completely fucked for a month.
Yeah.
Which at the moment seems to be the case. I mean, a lot of these Dota players are basically making their living streaming, and then they're kind of like coasting on their Dota earnings. But I mean, they're having to practice Dota several hours a day and then also stream like 6 to 7 hours a day to make these donations that are kind of making their living possible. Which is a weird, I mean, you should be able to stream if you want to, but it seems counterproductive to make them spend like almost a full-time job worth of hours streaming a day, and also they have to practice. I mean, they're usually not streaming their practice because a lot of these teams they want to work on strategies that they're not necessarily showing to the public so that they can hold on to them, like a football team does.
Yeah, that must be a weird situation actually, because when they go, like you're pointing out, they don't want to give away their entire strategy like during their practice time because everyone else can capitalize on that. So, for most people, I think when they stream games, I mean, maybe not some of the big ones, but they're doing it because they enjoy it. Some of them do make an awful lot of money, but I think those are the rare few. For the most part, it's going to be folks basically like us, you and I, that just like to do it.
Yeah.
And we do it because we enjoy it, but if they're already doing this as their job, I mean, hopefully they still enjoy the games that they play professionally, but they're going in there and they're blowing like what 6 or 7 hours a day just doing something that to them is now totally worthless. Like it's useless gameplay.
They're
working,
like
practicing basically a game that they don't even want to play at that point. Yeah, it's like they're working essentially for free because they're not practicing the strategies that are going to win them games, right?
Yeah, and I mean, they're practicing like individual characters. Like most of these people, when they stream, they're doing solo queue, which is they queue up for a game by themselves and play with other people in their general bracket. And that gets them experience on the characters, but it doesn't get them team experience. So you could be like the best player of X character in the world, and if you don't have any synergy with your team, it doesn't matter how many times you pick that character, you're not going to win a game.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's like we've been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm, which is it's really good for I think there's a competitive scene for Heroes of the Storm, and I don't want to piss anybody off. But...
Yeah. Well, from having watched Dota, I could say I think where you're going with this. I mean, it seems at least like Heroes is a simpler game.
Yes, it's definitely a simpler
from
game.
what I've watched.
And I mean, there's a lot more strategy. There's just as much strategy in Heroes of the Storm as there is in like Dota or League of Legends. But the game complexity is a lot lower, which means that the barrier for entry is a lot lower. There were, back when Dota 1 was big, I never really played Dota 1, but I played a lot of Warcraft 3, and every once in a while, because I played mostly custom games, I would play like tower defenses and stuff. Every once in a while, I was like, maybe I'll try Dota out. But so the way Warcraft 3 works is, if you don't already have a map, you download it from the host of the game.
That's right. You have to get it.
And Dota 1, it was like, if you join a lobby and you're downloading the map, you're kicked. Guaranteed. They're not letting you in because you don't know how to play. So Dota 1 was like the worst in terms of entry barriers, because if you didn't already know how to play, you weren't allowed to play in these lobbies, and there was no other way to learn to play than to play the game. So...
And by the way, that was like not just Dota, that was all custom games. Warcraft 3, Brood War, didn't matter what the map was. That's just how the community was.
Yeah. And they've worked a lot on lowering the barrier, but especially in games like Dota, it's still like there was a big post about it on the Dota 2 subreddit recently. Somebody that went into they brought their friend into the tutorial of Dota 2 as a person who had never played Dota before, and the tutorial itself is so like hard to grasp, and it assumes all this knowledge that new players aren't actually going to have. The tutorial doesn't actually help you at all in terms of learning the game. It shows you like the mechanics of the game, but it doesn't actually teach you the mechanics of the game, which is a really big issue. League of Legends has basically nothing in terms of a tutorial, unless that's changed since the last time I've played. But when I played before, they would throw you in like this custom map, and it would be like, walk down the lane and kill the creeps, and then buy an item. Here's your tutorial, and then they just throw you into the thick of it. So there's definitely like, I don't know how we got on this topic from from esports talk, but
it's MOBAs.
Like Heroes of the Storm, even they have like tournaments. Like there was a tournament called Heroes of the Dorm recently where you could earn college tuition for playing, but the teams that were in the grand finals of that were comprised mostly of professional Heroes of the Storm players. So it's like, what chance? Like anybody could sign up for that if they were in college, but if you're just 5 random college kids, what the fuck chance did you have?
You wouldn't stand a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
why even bother?
I don't know why. For some reason, I thought like, oh, there's not going to be any pros in this tournament. It'll be interesting to watch because it's just going to be a bunch of college kids that are playing Heroes of the Storm. But it really, the last 4 teams in the tournament were like 3 or 4 professional players on their team, which, it's just like watching a regular tournament at that point. And these people who probably have earned their college tuition already on tournament wins are earning free college tuition for winning this tournament. It's definitely, I feel like we have a decent way to go before esports is really like a safe, secure, viable job, as opposed to, I'm really good at this game, I can win a bunch on tournaments and then hopefully save all that money and live for a while on that between tournaments.
Yeah.
I definitely...
Well, if it gets to the point where they're going to have multi-million-dollar contracts for a single player, like actual pro sports or traditional sports, right?
Yeah.
Then you can rest easy, and then we're all going to be mad that people are getting paid that much money to play video games. So,
see, I don't know if it'll ever get that far. There's a Mega 64 video called "The Future of Esports," which is actually a really it's like, it's a satire video. It's a Mega 64 video, but it's like you watch it and you're like, this could potentially happen. Maybe not some of the things. It's like a timeline of what happens in esports, and it's like multi-million-dollar Red Bull contract, and then it's like 2050 real sports are eradicated from the earth.
Yeah.
But it's like, I would love to see this. Like, I don't think I'm cut out for esports because I get really frustrated at competitive games really fast. But I would love to see this thing like take that path and go towards a legitimate, like, secure job where, you know, you get signed to like a 3-year contract when you join a team. And I mean, I'm sure there would be caveats, like if you started doing terrible in every game, they could cut you from the team, which I think is a thing in sports, or they could just bench you and you would still collect.
Yeah, they'd bench you forever and you'd have a sub and that would be it. Yeah.
The problem there is you'd still be collecting their money and you wouldn't be playing. But I mean, League of Legends does it. Like, these people, when they retire from their teams in League of Legends, they're becoming coaches of that team. And they're still involved in the team. They're still holding up their contracts and stuff.
Yeah.
I think, I know that I'm going to probably spark a bunch of anger, like, trying to compare League of Legends and Dota 2. But I think League of Legends is more on the right track when it comes to making their game an actual, like, viable job. At the moment, Dota 2, I mean, obviously there's tons of people making their living on Dota 2. And I mean, definitely the people that cast and analyze Dota 2 are in a much safer spot than the people who play Dota 2. Like,
oh, yeah.
There's, like, that's a legitimate job at this point, casting and analyzing Dota 2. Like, there's
that
companies...
doesn't depend on them winning, right? So
no, not at all. And I mean, your performance, I mean, if you cast decently one game, you're probably going to cast that decently and only improve from there. There's no, like, you don't really have to worry too much about your performance dwindling, I guess, unless you don't do it for a while. But all you really need is knowledge of the game and an ability to talk at that point. So it's definitely, like, I would like to see Valve take some steps out of Riot's book and try to, like, secure the fact that this could be a potential future. I think it would be really good for just games in general, really.
No, I agree. And, you know, when they start doing stuff like that, something I mentioned before, that it's mutually beneficial, like, that's going to start encouraging more players to want to get into the pro scene, and then that's how you generate more revenue, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So,
at the moment, the driving factor is, hey, I could win this big dollar tournament, or hey, I could be, like, a popular person in this community if I get really good.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people that decide they want to play Dota 2 professionally are doing it because they like to play Dota 2 more than, oh, this could be, you know, this is potentially a job I could do. I mean, somewhere in the back of their mind there's that hope, I'm certain, but, like, usually when people are getting it, like, most of the Dota 2 pro players that are emerging now, that are kind of being picked up that weren't Dota 1 players, like, there's a whole new breed coming in at this point, and these are people that are getting discovered because they stream, basically.
Yeah.
So these are people that thought, like, you know, I like Dota 2 enough that I'll just stream it a lot every day. And, you know, I'll get better and maybe someone will notice me and pick me up for a team. And it's hard because I don't think a lot of the professionals really play ranked all that much. They don't put much stock in it, at least. Because, you know, you're playing with random people against random people. Very, very seldom is a 5-man team that's a professional team going into ranked, because their time is better spent practicing in, like, scrims with other teams and stuff.
Yeah, specifically arranged matches. Yeah. If they go in there, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything if they're not playing, like, a constructed match, you know?
Yeah, and matchmaking is always going to have that kind of, like, variance issue where you could get faced up against a team that's, like, 1,000 MMR higher than you randomly because there's so few teams in the queue. Or people way under you, and then you're not really learning anything, you're just stomping them. So
plus, half the strategy in these games, it's not just what you can do with your own team, but also if you're familiar with the other team and what they like to do and what characters they play, right?
Specifically, you're playing against teams, not just, like, you'll see completely different bands of heroes if you're playing public games of Dota 2 versus what you see in pro games.
Yeah.
There's, like, targeted bans are a thing, obviously. And then there are just characters that are better at higher levels of play than they are at lower levels. And there's characters that are better at lower levels of play than they are at higher levels, like, by far. So it's cool. I do hope that they kind of follow that path, though, and it becomes like a safe job that you could get. That would be really cool, I think. And that would be really good for, like, for pretty much everyone involved in it. The people that are streaming the tournaments, the people that are casting the tournaments, analyzing the tournaments. Valve will be getting more money. The teams will be getting more money. There's literally no loss to the potential of turning this into like a more structured seasonal type of thing. Nobody loses out.
And with more and more money just coming into just video games in general that's just going to make video games as a whole explode even more than they already have. So I don't really see it possibly being a bad thing. I think it's something that, even though I'm not into esports as much as you, or I'm almost not into esports at all, honestly, as you can probably tell by how much I've talked, I still think that it's something that should happen. I think it's a really good idea, and I hope that it does take off more than it already has.
I watch a lot more Dota than I play, so... Yeah, it's John in the chat said, is that risk reward any different than a show like Dancing with the Stars or Fear Factor? I think so, because that's just like a one-off thing. You're like, oh, I want to go on Dancing with the Stars. You know, if you're a B-list celebrity, you're like, I can get my name back out there. But these people are trying to make this a job. Like, you're not trying to make Fear Factor or Dancing with the Stars a job. You're only going to be on there once. That's pretty much how it goes with those shows. But this is like, these people are trying to segue something that they enjoy doing into a job. So I would say that there's a significant difference, because I feel like they don't want to take the risk, but they have to because it's the only option available to them if they want to do this as a job.
Otherwise, it's just back to Twitch and keep playing for free until you get noticed.
95% of professional players would rather have smaller tournament prize pools and a consistent salary than, you know, maybe earning $6 million at a tournament, but also maybe earning $50,000.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and the prize pool for the International 2015 was 18 million. You were right.
Yeah. So I mean, imagine how much they could salary, like if they started like a league type of thing, like League of Legends does, where they have, you know, I think League of Legends, they bring like 8 teams in or something, and those teams are considered part of this circuit, and they get a salary. And if they did that in Dota, then people would be so much more willing to stick with the team, to show up to all the majors, to really, like, you know, work towards the international, instead of just kind of like at this, like, I would say probably last year the majors before the international were like, I mean, there was money in them, but it was more like, let's see what these teams can do, and if we need to drop one of our players and try and get another player from another team. Like, it was all scouting, basically, leading up to the international. And, like, that's so much money that they could have injected over time into this community instead of in one huge bundle. And, I mean, a lot of that money, most of that money came from the community, but I feel like the community would be willing to pay on that level, too. Like, they would be willing to have that money go towards making this a more consistent thing, as opposed to, look how much money our tournament has accrued. Look how much money people are making.
Yeah, the lottery style.
That's kind of good for it, I guess, because it draws... I mean, you know, people that don't give a shit about Dota are going to see that and go, shit, maybe I'll check this game out, you know? They had a tournament where $18 million was on the line. I'll check this out. I'll take a look at this game. But I also think that they could draw in a different crowd and more of a crowd if they had, like... You know, if it was more like a sport. That's all I have. I don't really have anything else to add. We should move on because you haven't gotten to talk very much on this.
Well, we're about halfway through. We're actually exactly at 30 minutes in our little our time frame here.
Yeah.
I mean, I like listening to you talk about esports. I just don't have a lot to say on it myself.
I
should watch more.
It's something that I get weirdly passionate about because, like, even though I feel like I could never be like an e-athlete or whatever, just because I don't have the patience to play competitive games. Like, I get too angry at them. But I really like the idea as a like a hardcore gamer, I would call myself, I guess. I play games constantly, like multiple hours a day, every single day. I feel really good about the idea that people can make a living playing video games.
It is pretty cool, just because when we were growing up, this was not a thing. I mean, there was always been like little tournaments and stuff and local ones and that kind of thing.
You could play like
never been professional.
You could play like Magic cards or something and get like $1,000 if you want a tournament or something. But the idea that you could earn multi-million dollars playing a video game was never. I mean, before like 5 years ago, it's not even a possibility. Like the most you could earn, you may get like $10,000 in a Call of Duty tournament or something, but that was like the high end.
Yeah. It's appropriate that it's kind of being spearheaded now by Valve, right?
Yeah.
Who's been so influential in making PC gaming, as big as it is, I think.
At least worth as much money as it is.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. But yeah, anything else you want to note on before we move on?
No, I think we move on to something that you're going to lead, actually.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about mobile games. And this is something that if you are not someone who considers themselves a gamer, then you probably really like mobile games. And if you do play a lot of games, you probably don't like mobile games. So it seems to be like the actual kind of sentiment that's kind of floating around out there.
It's a fairly polarizing topic, I would say.
Yes. And I think there's some very, very good reasons for that. I wanted to talk about the whole financial model of mobile games. But pretty much everybody knows, if you're familiar with cell phones at all, or even video games at all, you know that cell phone games, mobile games, they never approach the depth and complexity of games on any other platform. Because most of the time, they're meant to be games that are just, you pull it out of your pocket while you're waiting for the bus or whatever, or you're on your break at work, just something to play really quickly and kill some time.
Mobile games are, I will say that I feel like mobile games are in a massive regression where they actually used to be more detailed and more full-fledged games, and we're reaching the point where they're barely games now.
Well, the developers of these games, at least the popular ones, they come at them from an angle where they're not thinking about them like they're games. It's okay, how can we make this as addictive as possible and as money-grubbing as possible to make as much money as possible in the shortest possible time?
Yeah.
That's how they do it. And one of the biggest ones, Angry Birds, and everybody knows Angry Birds. You think of mobile games, you think of Angry Birds. It's huge.
Angry Birds 1 was the mobile game. That was the game that kicked off pretty much everything.
That is like the defining mobile game of its generation, okay? Basically before that, you thought of mobile games, you think of like Snake on your old Nokia, right? Yeah. And that was pretty much it. Great game, by the way. But it's besides the point.
It'd be monetized if you bought it now.
They'd monetize it somehow, yeah.
You'd have to like buy skins for your Snake, and you'd only be able to play so many times a day unless you shared it on Facebook.
Yep. And a good example of that, by the way, is Dungeon Keeper. Did you ever play the original Dungeon Keeper?
Yes. And I know all about the debacle that EA made of the new version.
So, if you're not,
I don't know anything about the new game though. I didn't play it or anything.
It's similar, but they introduced the paywall timers. And, you'll build a trap, and then you could rush the trap if you have gems. But if you don't have enough, you could buy more. It's really easy. They're right here. Look at that. Look how easy it is to buy more for like $50.
Oh, on the iPhone, it's real easy. I have Touch ID on my iPhone, so I can unlock my phone with my thumbprint. I can also just click on a thing and press my thumb to the button, and it buys it for me. So
yes. And that is like the perfect storm of making money on cell phones, where they have games that make you want to keep playing, but put a roadblock in, and then they make it super easy for you to spend money and keep playing. And they're individuals who will spend way more money on one of these games, than a single AAA release that was in development for 4 or 5 years. Right?
There's a reason this business model is still going strong. It's because these companies are making literally hundreds of millions of dollars off of like probably 10%. I think I read somewhere, I think it was King, the people that make Candy Crush Saga. They say, oh, well, we're fine not charging for our games because we know that 10% of the people playing our game will make up for the 90% of the people who will never spend a dime on our game.
Yeah.
Like, they're admitting that only like 10% of people who download the game will ever pay any money on it, and they're still making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. And it's so consistent because they're far from the only people that do that. Everybody looks at games like, well, Angry Bird is doing it now, and that's actually something I wanted to mention. When I mention Angry Birds, there are like 15 different Angry Birds titles already in existence, and they're pretty similar except for a couple exceptions like the RPG. I think there's one or two that are like a totally different kind of game.
Transformers one that I downloaded, and it's like it's an auto runner, and you just tap on your screen in the general area of pigs, and it shoots them. That's the whole game.
Yeah, that's mobile games for you.
Angry Birds 1 was a game that you paid like $3 for, and then you just played it. There were
You bought it. Yes.
there were microtransactions, I think, but it was like you can buy a power up to clear a hard level that you're on, and that was it. That was the only microtransaction.
But
now,
see, even without that though, in all those original Angry Birds titles, well, I mean they're not original, but you know what I mean. Everything prior to Angry Birds 2, which is just released a few months ago. This is, I think, in March it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have little perks like that to kind of help you along if you're having trouble, but you could always just start over and keep going and going and going and going until you beat a level. On Angry Birds 2, the way they do it is if you run out of birds, then you can watch an ad if you want, and you get another bird. But if you blow through all those bonus birds, then you lose a life. And you have a limited number of lives. You have no lives left, you can't play the game anymore. And that is something that they haven't done before as far as I'm aware, but it's very, very common with lots and lots of other mobile games. They do that, you can play again in an hour or whatever, or a day, unless you want to spend $5 right now.
Your pick up and play anytime on your mobile device games, you now have to wait a half hour to play. That's how long it takes to get a life in Angry Birds 2, by the way. Half hour.
There you go.
Which is pretty short, actually.
It's
by some of these games standards.
Definitely.
The most disturbing trend, like even more so than paywalls to me, like this thing where you have to wait, because I'm willing to wait. If I'm playing something and like it's not really a game anyway, like Farmville, if I build something and it takes me an hour, I don't really like need it right then. I just set it to build and then I lock my phone. But so I have been downloading a lot of mobile games because I have a lot of downtime at work, and the only thing I can really do is sit at my desk and play on my phone. So I want to tell you two sequels of games that I loved. Angry Birds 2 and Plants vs. Zombies 2. I downloaded both of these to try them out. And the paywall isn't the only issue here. So Plants vs. Zombies 2 and Angry Birds 2 both have this live system where if you fail enough times, you're screwed and you can't play for a while.
Yeah.
The biggest issue here, and especially in Plants vs. Zombies 2, these games are made to be so hard that they're almost impossible to complete without buying power-ups. So much so that in the tutorials for these games, they're like, here's 5 of these power-ups. Try it out once and you get to keep the remaining 4 and you can use them, whenever you want. But when you run out, you have to buy more.
Gotta buy more.
And these levels are honestly almost impossible to complete without these power-ups. In Plants vs. Zombies 2, I hit a wall where I literally could not complete a level. Like, I would have had to, be playing perfectly, picking all the perfect plants and tapping all the sun as soon as it drops to get maximize my income. And even then, it was just, hard as nails. I just couldn't do anything. And the game was like, hey, see, you failed this level a few times. Why don't you buy some power-ups?
Yeah.
Angry Birds 2 did it too. It was getting to the point where, because I think that Angry Birds 2 randomizes the birds that it gives you at the beginning of the level as well. So you might get birds that don't really help you on the level at all. And then,
actually?
I'm not sure.
In the original games, they didn't do that. You had a specific loadout per level, and you have 40 explodey birds, and you got to beat it with these.
There's lots of things Angry Birds 2 does that the original didn't do. But Angry Birds 2 as well, I was running into levels that were just almost I could barely finish them sometimes, and I would get half a star. I wouldn't even get a 1 star on the levels. And it's these are obviously levels that were made to be nearly impossible if you don't use power-ups, which you have to pay for.
Yeah.
That is worse to me than the time blocks, by far. The fact that now games are being developed specifically so that you have to buy power-ups to finish them. And I mean, you don't have to, obviously. And that's the catch. You can't say that this game requires you to buy power-ups, because it technically is possible to beat this level without power-ups. It's just really fucking hard.
You have to be almost inhuman to be able to do it. Yeah.
And that trend is so scary for me because of the potential crossover into actual games on computer and stuff that could happen at some point.
Into real games, yeah.
Yeah. Imagine if your free-to-play MMO actually just made you get 5% of the experience if you weren't paying them money. Which, by the way, Star Wars The Old Republic has lots of features that are dangerously close to that. You have to pay us to really be able to play this game.
Well, yeah, look at exactly that. Look at free-to-play MMOs, right?
Most
MMOs
of them
that have a free version, but that you can subscribe to, or you can buy your experience boost and such. Like, can you imagine how long Old Republic would have taken us to get to where we were if they weren't doing that promotion with the bonus experience?
Yeah.
It'd be crazy.
Also,
right?
if you're not a subscriber, you get 50% less experience, I think, overall, just in general. So it would have taken us even longer.
Yep.
Also, if you're not a subscriber in Old Republic, you can't properly use their professions. You can't hold enough money to buy anything. You can't equip certain rarities of items. These are things that I would expect from a mobile game. And I still play Star Wars The Old Republic, and I still enjoy it, but I will not play it unsubscribed. I am sad to say that I give them money, but the game is basically unplayable if you don't.
Yeah.
It's
Some
like,
MMOs with
it's
that style,
less than a demo. It is less than a demo.
No,
I would
really
expect to download a demo and be able to play the full game for a limited amount of time, or be able to experience all the features of the game in a self-contained little level.
Yeah.
With Star Wars The Old Republic, if you're playing for free, not only are you not getting all of the features of the game, you are specifically getting features of the game nerfed to points that you would expect. Like, you're getting features of the game that are hamstringed and cut in half.
Yeah. A
Not
good example, though, like if you look at WoW, though, because that, I don't even play WoW, right? I tried the trial once, but that's a trial that lets you level up for a certain amount of time. You level up to level 20, I think.
Yes,
and then,
but every
you
feature of the game is available
Yeah.
to you that you would have normally at level 20.
Yeah,
You can
see,
do
that's a good way to do
literally anything in that game that you could do while paying it up to level 20. And a lot of free-to-play games are completely fully functional games. Terra, Rift, all these MMOs that didn't really make enough money as subscriber-based games, so they had to go free-to-play. They're still offering you the full experience, and you can optionally pay to enhance the experience. They're not offering you a lesser experience, and you have to pay to get the normal fucking experience. That's what Star Wars The Old Republic does. You have to pay them. Even having paid them previously is not enough to get the full experience of the game. The fact that you paid them at some point when their game required you to pay just gets you like a title and a little bit more money that you can hold, and that's it.
Yeah. And there's even a game that we've been playing recently. We haven't played it in a few days, maybe a week or so, Skyforge. And that is a game that is free to play from pardon me, from the get-go. It's actually a game that they designed around the model rather than an MMO that tried to be subscriber based and then kind of went to free to play afterwards because the subscriptions weren't working out so well. And in that game, you do get the full experience as far as I can tell, but it does have some things that kind of gimp the experience if you're not a subscriber or you don't have the premium, which is what they call it. You get if you're premium, you get 30 or 50% more experience. Well, it's not really experience points, but it's sort of the equivalent in that game.
Yeah.
Money earned, that kind of stuff. But they don't seem to gut any of the actual features. And those guys knew that. And they offer you there's cosmetic things. You can buy different mounts, and you can pay money to redo your character's appearance and things like that. That's okay. But then when you run into games like these mobile games, that's where the problem lies. And like you pointed out, I'm worried that it's going to be huge and kind of leak into PC games. As we speak, it's probably already happening.
Oh yeah,
or not.
I'm certain.
I can't think of any examples at the moment, I admit, so I'm not 100% sure on this. But
Old Republic
I'm gonna find one.
It's the only thing
Old
I can
Republic's
think
pretty
of.
bad. Yeah.
Old Republic is an example of a company. They said, "Hey, our game's not doing so hot. Let's fuck it up even more. Let's make it even worse off." But the problem is, there's all these people that want to try it, so they pay them money. So they have this inflated subscriber count from people that they're like, well, I really want to play this game, but I basically have to pay to really be able to play it. Or like you try it out and you're like, this is kind of fun, but I wonder what it's like if I can actually play the game.
Yeah.
So like their subscriber count went up when they went to free to play, but I think that that's an inflated false number that was cheated to achieve, basically. And as far as I know, Old Republic is the only game I can think of that has really taken that next step towards really, really fucking you over if you don't pay them money. But I think we're fast approaching the era of we're fast approaching the end of the era of just buying a game and playing it. Single player games obviously are still going to be like that, I think, for the foreseeable future. But multiplayer games have already started taking those steps towards, you need to pay us money for this to really be an enjoyable experience.
Yeah. And I think there's an unfortunate trend happening with a lot of big budget games. Maybe not in places where it's cheaper to develop, like in Poland or somewhere, but if you're making a massively how should I say this? Well, a game with a huge budget, right?
Yeah.
If I have a really cool idea for a game and I have a team, like I have some friends, we know how to make this, we got the skills, but we have to survive for a year or two to actually create it. 2-3 years.
Yeah.
We need money. We need funding from somewhere. And then you run into the problem of, okay, well, the publisher doesn't give a shit what kind of game you want to make. They just want a return on their investment.
Yeah.
And then you'll get games that are designed like that. Probably like Old Republic, honestly. I mean, I haven't been a fan of every single BioWare game, but I believe that there's probably some people there who wish they could have made it differently, but they couldn't because they needed to make more money for EA.
Oh yeah.
And that I feel is
that game
happening with mobile games. That's why we're getting lots of games like that.
Old Republic is an EA game before it is a BioWare game, through and through.
Absolutely.
That is a game that BioWare was basically forced to make, I feel like. Like, EA was like, you need to make us this game.
Yeah.
It's in the contract that you have to make us a game, and we're choosing this one.
I feel like a lot of people on the team probably thought it was going to be super successful too, because it's Star Wars. You know?
Or what happened is there was a team at BioWare that was like, hey, we really want to make this game, and EA's like, yeah, you can make that game. Here, we'll fund it for you.
We'll help.
And then as soon as they locked him in, they're like, so you realize that this is going to have to happen, and this. Old Republic, it's just a game that did not handle the fact that it wasn't WoW very well. Now, it was a good game when it came out, I think. It didn't really have much of an end game when it came out, but that's a problem with all MMOs. And if people, I don't know if people remember this, but WoW had like one raid and really bad PvP when it first came out. So this is not a problem that just is happening now and people can go, well, why can't they be more like WoW? Because WoW has existed for 11 years. So no game comes out with a bunch of end game content. The problem that Star Wars had was it wasn't WoW. It just couldn't sustain the subscription model, as most MMOs cannot. I mean, how many MMOs can you think of that are still stubbornly holding on to a subscription model? Elder Scrolls Online went free to play. WildStar is going free to play. ArcAge started free to play, I think. Old Republic is free to play. I can't think of an MMO that you have to pay to play anymore, aside from WoW.
There's EVE Online. I think you still have to subscribe to that.
Well,
but you can also work that game to pay for itself. So.
Yes, and I would say that that's a different kind of game. It's technically an MMO, but I would not lump it in with other MMOs. It is not the same type of game at all. It's not.
It is a different.
It's not attracting nearly the same audience as a stock standard MMO would.
It is kind of unusual like that, because EVE seems like a game where instead of trying to make it super accessible and like let's grab as many subs as we can, and like add every feature that we can to make it easier, user friendly, or whatever, to make people sub, they're like, all right, well, we have our player base. There's like 40,000 people on at a given time, and we're good with that.
Well, they played right into the hands of those kind of like people that browse the 4chan VG board, and people that they have a lot of time and they want something to do with that time. They like those kind of spreadsheet type of things. The same people that'll spend 200 hours building a castle in Minecraft down to like the perfect little details. Those kind of, they get jokingly, they're referred to as autistic in gaming communities. Minecraft is an autism simulator, but it's a real type of person, the type of person that wants to pour all of their free time into this game and really feel like they accomplished something, like they had to work for something. Like maybe they didn't realistically. I mean, like in EVE Online, you're not really working for that stuff. You're just putting the hours in, but there's nothing hard about what you do in EVE Online. But it gives you that sense of it gives you that sense of, I put effort into this and I accomplished something. And that's definitely the kind of player that EVE is playing towards. And MMOs kind of do it, but MMOs are tending more towards instant gratification at this point. Yeah. So, you'll hear it from old WoW players all the time. The game sucks now. It was way better in vanilla when everything was hard as nails. What you don't hear from those people and their nostalgia is that the reason it was hard is because a lot of the game systems were just not very refined. And a lot of it was not very enjoyable. I played during Burning Crusade. I played back in WoW's glory days, and I don't miss them. Now, I do think that they're tending a little bit too much towards the sort of, let's try and give everyone what they want. which you can't do.
Yeah.
So they're trying to please like the core players, the raiders, the PvPers, but they're also like, well, let's try and squeeze a bunch of stuff in so the casual players don't feel left out either, which is an admirable thing to try and do. But
yeah, it's a nice idea.
You're spreading it too thin. You have to focus on a group of players. That's just the nature of video games. You cannot please everybody that plays video games. It's not possible.
Do you think that has anything to do with their recent subscriber drop?
I think that naturally that game is going to continue to drop subscribers no matter the quality of the expansion that they put out. Yep. That is my strong opinion. As this game gets older, it gets less appealing to new players. No matter if they put out the best expansion that anybody's ever fucking seen. They'll get some old players back, but a lot of people who still lament like, oh, WoW sucks now. Even if they went back to how it was, these people don't have time anymore. This game is 11 years old. These people have jobs now. They're adults. They've moved on to real life. I think a game this old, there's no way that it's ever going to not lose subscribers in the long run. Like, that's just how it goes. It's less appealing to new players because it's an old game. People hear these horror stories about WoW and they don't want to play it. People that used to play it don't want to come back, don't have time to come back. That's the situation with me. I still enjoy WoW, but I don't really have time to play it anymore.
Yeah. Well, do you think that we'll see a day in our lives where WoW has to close the servers and be like, all right, we can't do this anymore?
I don't think so, just because I think that WoW will never stop making enough money to self-sustain itself, as long as they're still producing content for it. The only way that WoW is going to die is if Blizzard stops producing content for it. And I mean, even as subscriber numbers dip, they're still making enough money off everything else that they do to sustain WoW if they really wanted to. Like,
yeah, this is a little out of date, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe a month or two. But there was a point recently where I read they had like 5.5 million subscribers, or down from 11 million or something like that.
Yeah,
and that is a huge loss, but at the same time,
that's still a lot of fucking people.
Yeah,
that's still a lot of people giving them $15 a month.
Yeah,
okay,
that's still a fuck ton of money.
Guarantee you, those servers do not cost that much money to maintain.
Not even close.
And
no way.
As they lose subscribers, they can merge servers and lower their costs even more. I don't think there's ever going to reach a point where WoW is not profitable for them until they shut it down or they stop producing content for it. The only thing that's going to kill WoW completely is Blizzard shutting it down. That's the only way. And they're only going to...
I said that before, yeah. The only thing that can kill WoW at this point is WoW itself.
And people love to say, like, oh, WoW's dying. They just lost 5 million subscribers. They're losing subscribers, but it's not dying. There's no way losing subscribers is ever going to kill WoW. There might reach a point where they feel like it's not profitable enough, and they close it down, but I don't think there will ever reach a point where they're not making profit on WoW.
It would never go into the red.
Yeah,
you know what? I agree with that. I think it'll always be, even if, like, give it another 10 years, it'll probably still be around. At that point, it might be like, you know, people might look at it like Ultima or EverQuest, and where it's like a really old iconic MMO that it's so old, so you know, like you said, the regular players just don't have the time for it. They're all, you know, like 30, 40 years old at this point. And, you know, they have families to feed and that kind of shit. They don't have time for it anymore.
I do think that sometime in the near future, WoW will switch to a free-to-play model. I foresee that in their future. Because, honestly, there's probably more profit in it for them than sticking with a subscriber model. Especially if they continue to hemorrhage subscribers. But you know, there's always a lull as an expansion comes to a close in WoW, and then they always jump back up. They'll probably jump like 3 million subscribers when they release that new expansion. And that's why they continue to release expansions well after what they said was going to be the last expansion for WoW. They canceled their next MMO project to continue supporting WoW because they know
yearly expansions now, right?
They're trying
committing to that.
Yeah, that's their plan, and that's because they see this too. They realize, you know, we may be losing subscribers in the long run, but as long as we keep putting this out, we're gonna get gonna get, you know, a big spike of subscribers for a couple months every year, and we're never really gonna drop to the point where we can't sustain this game anymore. But I really think in the next few years they are going to seriously consider and probably switch to a free-to-play model. the potential for money is way higher than just with a subscription model. They've already got a cash shop. They've been testing the waters for several years at this point with the cash shop. It started out just as, you know, you could buy a couple mounts and a couple pets. Also, they implemented the WoW token, which you can buy for gold. And
that gives you game time, right?
Yeah, it's not really, you don't buy it necessarily for gold. It's bought with real money, but you can buy it and it becomes a tradable item, which you can then put on the auction house for gold as a player. So it's still injected into the economy as a player. But if you have expendable income and you want a bunch of money on WoW, they basically implemented a free way to buy money on WoW, which was always like the biggest thing, was like gold sellers on WoW and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
you know, that's actually something that, if I could divert for a second here, a few years ago, there's a really popular video on YouTube, and this was recorded a few years ago. Somebody was interviewing Gabe Newell, and this is a very, very well-known thing that he said about piracy. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And he says that it's a service problem. Like, if the pirates are providing something better, that's why people aren't going to buy your game. And that is exactly the mentality that not only Blizzard, but EVE Online and Skyforge as well, because they do this. That's the mentality that they took on when they introduced this thing where, okay, gold sellers are a huge problem for us. They're clogging our game. They're inflating our subscriber numbers to like inaccurate.
They're realizing, clearly people want to pay us real money for gold.
They're willing to do this. So let's just.
They are obviously willing to pay their real money to someone and get money in game. It may as well be us.
Yeah, let's do it, and then they can do it safely. It'll be, not some spooky third-party website. They won't get banned for doing it.
Yeah.
If they get caught, they'll love it. And that is a really good service solution to the gold piracy problem, or whatever you want to call it.
The big issue with this is the players set the prices on these WoW tokens. So obviously, for the next year and a half or so, they're going to be massively inflated prices.
Yeah.
It would be a little better probably if you could if the price was set by Blizzard, but it's a little thing,
Well, I think that's how they do it in Skyforge with the tokens they use that you can buy with money and then spend on the premium. I think those prices are fixed. EVE Online also leaves the prices up to the player. So
EVE Online, though,
they do fluctuate.
I would say EVE Online is a much more economy-based game than WoW, though. So, in EVE Online, you're going to see those prices normalize because, for one, the player base is smaller. So there's less people that are going to be willing to pay exorbitant prices for your bullshit.
Yeah.
And another thing is most of the people playing this game are really economy focused. So
well, in that game, the whole economy is generated by the players. Everything.
Yeah.
The raw materials.
It works better in that game than I think it does in WoW, because I'm certain that people are selling those tokens for like 500,000 gold at this point. Because they're well, you can only hold 999,000 gold, but gold is pretty easy to come by now. They made it a lot easier, and there's people that have just been playing for so long that they have like the max gold on all their fucking alts. So there are people that want to get rid of this money, so they're willing to pay that much, which means that they're going to sell for that much, and it's going to take time for it to normalize and really be a viable way for you to play the game.
Yeah.
Because as it stands, I mean, even with gold as easy as it is to get, you're probably going to have to devote a large amount of the time that you get for that WoW token to paying for the next WoW token.
They do. In fact, in EVE, the way they do it is you multi-box. You actually have multiple accounts going at the same time, mining, basically.
I was going to say,
get enough money to pay for all
I think in EVE, some of the bigger corporations have people that are specifically dedicated to doing nothing but mining to buy Plex for other members of the corporation.
No, it's true. That's exactly how they do it. Like, they operate like a real company.
Yeah.
They have
little, like, I presume newer people to the corporation are tasked with, here, go mine for 8 hours and get enough fucking money to buy us some Plex. Like, that's probably like initiation rights or something.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. A lot of people that play that game like the mining.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a tax and, you can get... I guess ganked is the word. I haven't played in years. I don't know. But people like that you can just kind of kick back and just relax and be like, all right, I'm going to sit here for 5 hours and let my mining lasers do their thing. And a buddy will come in with a carrier and pick up my shit and take it away back to the corporation.
If I played EVE,
like
that's what I would do. I can't imagine having fun. With the time dilation, I can't imagine having fun in those large-scale battles in EVE. Because you click an action, and then you have to wait literally 15 minutes for that action to happen. Because for people that don't know, in EVE, when these huge battles happen, to keep people's computers from crashing, because there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of, that's an exaggeration maybe,
it's
but
huge.
there's like,
well,
there's like thousands
of
of ships involved in these battles. So to prevent lag and issues with computers, they do this time dilation thing where like you click an action and everybody is lagged by the server by this amount, basically. It's artificial lag implemented to even the playing field so that nobody has an advantage because they're suffering from less lag. But at the same time, it makes these battles, they look real cool in screenshots. Like if you read about the biggest battles in EVE that are like tens of thousands of dollars worth of ships are getting destroyed, it's fucking awesome. But then you read that, you know, the entire battle took 32 hours to actually occur. You're like, oh, that sounds
You don't
terrible.
imagine that, like, during this, people are getting up and leaving and going to eat and sleep and stuff like that, take a piss.
You can queue up a few actions and then go to bed, and you'll wake up and those actions will still be queued waiting to happen. Like, I like the idea because I really like the fact that there's no advantage given to people who have better computers or better internet connections. So I like the fact that it evens the playing field out completely. Because it dilates time in this area so that nobody is like, oh, I lagged and I couldn't get a command through, so I'm automatically, you know, a shot behind the enemy. So it really kind of makes you depend on skill and backup. And backup more than anything. The winner of an EVE battle is the person who has the most people and the most ships to throw at this battle until the other team decides, we're losing too much, we got to get the fuck out. Nobody wins these fights by completely wiping out the other team. That doesn't happen. The other team decides, you know, we've lost too many carriers that are worth 10,000 real dollars. We're backing out. So,
probably the greatest thing that anyone will ever read about when you're reading stories about like shit that goes down in EVE is when you read about the story of a ship that was like all on its own, going from one jump point to another, and it was carrying in its cargo like 1,000 of those pilot licenses. Which, I think they're like 15. They must be $15 each. It's a month of game time.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money. People will buy these and ship them around because it's a commodity in the game.
Yeah,
and
big fights in EVE. This is how big fights in EVE happen. A lone ship is carrying thousands of real dollars worth of cargo, and an enemy ship jumps in and sees it. That enemy ship immediately calls its backup. The person in the cargo ship immediately calls their backup. Everyone arrives at this system at the exact same time, and this massive fight breaks out so that they don't lose this cargo ship full of like thousands of dollars worth of goods. And these people didn't pay thousands of dollars for this. At this point, there's very few people that play EVE regularly that are still paying them money. But somebody's paying them money because that's how this stuff gets implemented into the game. But most people that are playing the game regularly are making all of their money through like mining and through their corporations and playing the game for free, basically. So when you read about EVE and you read about like, oh, you know, $70,000 worth of ships were lost, nobody paid $70,000 for those ships. That's just how much equivalency.
No, like collectively, that's how much money was.
That's the equivalency of real money worth of what was lost. So I feel like there's a lot of we got really off topic there talking about other MMOs.
Yeah, we did. It's all right. We're at about an hour anyway.
Yeah, we're wrapping up, but it really worries me that other games are going to start dipping their toes into the let's make this game free and charge out the ass for a good experience.
Yeah. Well, just to wrap up, that actually does touch on what I was originally talking about like half an hour ago with the mobile game stuff.
Yeah.
I did want to close by saying I think there need to be more developers for mobile games, not just mobile games, but games in general. More developers that really, really want to make a good game for the hell of making a good game.
I can't find a good mobile game anymore, dude.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a couple that you should probably try.
Okay.
Because I've discovered some. I have an Android phone. I've discovered some in the Play Store. They're popular games. I'm sure they're on iPhone as well. One is fucking Geometry Wars, dude. And man, there's a bunch of them now. It's Geometry Wars 3 Retro Evolved something. I can't remember, but it's on the Play Store. It's like $6 Canadian. And I don't know if it has any in-app purchases or not. It might. In fact, I think it does. But it doesn't have like any super shitty systems where they kind of stonewall you unless you buy them.
Yeah.
It's one of the less offensive ones, I guess is the word. But it's actually a lot of fun. It's so well designed. They actually make good use of the touchscreen interface. You don't feel like it was a game designed to be used with analog sticks.
Yeah.
Really, really smart. And another one is Shadowrun. I bought Shadowrun Dragonfall, and I actually play it on my Android phone. I do have one gripe about the game. It seems like it's just a straight port from the PC.
Now,
they didn't really make the interface so good for touchscreens because everything's really, really tiny. Probably better on a tablet.
Here's the serious problem, though. Both of those games that you listed are not mobile games to start with. Geometry Wars is a game. Maybe that one was developed.
This one is.
Mobile.
I know Geometry Wars was originally on.
It was on Xbox 360, I think.
It was a mini game in another game, and I think we talked about this already.
It was a pack-in. It was a pack-in with the Xbox 360 when it first came out. You got that game for free on your Xbox when you bought it.
I did have that, and that was good. This is actually, it is like a game designed for mobile phones. It's very, very well designed in that way.
Yeah, but it's really disconcerting to hear that, and both the games that you listed did not start as mobile games. So the fact that you found some good mobile games and they're not really like, they didn't start as mobile games. Like, I have all these games. I have been downloading so many fucking games trying to find good ones. I have Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. I have Final Fantasy Record Keeper. I have Final Fantasy Heaven Strike. I have a game called League of Angels. They're all the same fucking game. Like, they are literally all the same game, reskinned.
Yeah.
You play the game, you can pay money, or you can just play the game for hours on end to build up a supply of currency to do the same thing. They limit how many times you can play with like a stamina bar, and then you have to wait for it to refill or pay to refill it. They're all the fucking same, just with different skins on it. I was playing Final Fantasy Record Keeper, and that one, it's not like a super restrictive time gate until you get into the higher levels of the game, because when you level up, your stamina replenishes. And for most of the beginning of the game, you will level up before you run out of stamina, no matter what. And I switched from Final Fantasy Record Keeper to Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle because I prefer Dragon Ball Z to Final Fantasy, and those are pretty much the same game, reskinned. They have the same basic, and all the games that I'm finding have this same basic framework with just different stuff wrapped around it. There's a game called Puzzle and Dragon, which is a Bejeweled type of game, but it's the same basic idea. You have a stamina bar. You have to pay money if you really want to progress in the game more than, like, you know, take a week to do one thing. It's just every game I find on the App Store, and you have to dig for good games because the only games pushed on the App Store are bad games. They're these games that you have to pay. I guess I don't want to call them bad games, but they're these games that are almost unplayable if you don't pay money.
Yeah, they take advantage of that.
Because those are the games that are making money for Apple too. They're getting a cut of all that. You know, they're getting a cut of every microtransaction in a game that's on the App Store. Guaranteed.
I think the mobile games that I've been actually enjoying, rather than the ones that are kind of there, like Dragonfall is a really good game. It is legitimately a great RPG, but as you pointed out, it's not a mobile game. It's a game that was on PC and it's available for mobile devices, but it's playable. They just didn't do a very good job of porting it over, I think. But then you have games like Geometry Wars, the one that I mentioned. Also, Tiernan mentioned in Twitch chat, Pixel Dungeon, which I've also played.
I've played that actually.
And that's a really good game. They're games that were actually designed that they play off the strengths of the touchscreen. They don't necessarily take advantage of, like, oh, let's, charge people to play every 5 minutes or whatever the shitty model is. But they just use the hardware really, really well. We need more of those on mobile phones. To actually,
all those games I listed, they could just be like shitty PC games. There's no real functionality in the touchscreen that you couldn't do in a computer. Like, I'm just tapping the screen. Here we go.
Yeah. Angry Birds. That's another example, I think. The original one, anyway. Yeah. Where it's took good advantage of the touchscreen. It was a good thing to take out and play, and it was fun.
Angry Birds was like possibly the greatest iOS game that came out, and also the beginning of the end for good iOS games.
It was the vanguard, yeah.
It's between that or Plants vs. Zombies. Plants vs. Zombies was another one that was just like an amazing iOS title that kind of kick-started this like horrible hellhole that we're in now. It's just, it bothers me that I can't give money to a company to just play a good game. Like, I just want to give you money. Like, just make a game that you charge for, and that's it. And then you play the game.
Yeah. Well, it's just because, so many of them know they can make a lot more if they don't do it that way, unfortunately.
Yeah. The best games on mobile, I think, are like the ports of the original Final Fantasy games that you have to pay $15 for. But at least they're good games. We know that they're proven to be good games.
They're tried and true. So they got that under the belt at least.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should probably call it quits for tonight.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about real quick?
No, I had a couple more topics, but they're going to take more time, so I'll hold those until next week. We both played a little bit of our respective games. We just won't talk about those today. We'll talk about them on the trade-in next week.
Yeah, we'll do a complete one next week. Yeah, as Tony mentioned, he and I have both been getting some good progress on our trading games. Well, real briefly, I'll say I have been enjoying XCOM. I won't say anything more, but I am enjoying it so far.
I'm definitely enjoying Enslaved. It's that kind of like God of War style gameplay. You're just mashing a couple buttons. But I like the story so far. I really like the I wish that it would stay this way. I know that it's probably not going to, but I really like the fact that your protagonist does not like the person that they have to travel with because of the circumstances. So you two don't like each other. I'm certain that, they're going to come to like each other by the end of the game, blah, 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 which doesn't really make sense. I mean, she's basically holding your character hostage on threat of death. So,
well, hey, it's Stockholm Syndrome, right? I mean, happens all the time in reality.
I would love if the whole game progresses and at the end your character still hates her, although I do not think that's the case. We'll see though. I don't know if I'm going to finish it before the trade-in, but I like what I've played so far, so I might just finish it on my own. It does have some weird issues with my graphics card. Like some of the textures are really weird.
What is it with every single game I assign you to play?
I can see individual polygons in Monkey's arms. Like on some of it's just in the cutscenes. The game looks great when I'm playing it, but the pre-rendered cutscene, or they're not pre-rendered, I guess. They're in-engine cutscenes.
Maybe in-engine,
but it'll cut to Monkey and there'll be like all these weird like jaggy square parts on his arms, like polygons. Like I can see the polygons of his character. And Trip has this weird thing where like there's this like halo of like color dissipation on her texture. So like she's like bright right here, and then like her texture just gets darker in rings as it goes out. I'll try and take some screenshots to show you. It's interesting. But the graphics are pretty good. The gameplay is fun. There are things that you can do that are not really like stock standard action game things because you have that companion. Like you can have her distract enemies. You can distract enemies for her so that she doesn't get damaged, and I assume she can die. She has a thing where if she gets caught by enemies one time, she stuns them with like an EMP. Because all the enemies are I assume all the enemies are going to be robots. I haven't run into any non-robot enemies so far.
Yeah.
So she has like a get out of jail free card once, and I've never let her get caught again. But I assume that she can take damage and die if she does, and then you have to start over from a checkpoint. So. It's got some cool systems that set it apart at least a little bit from a standard, God of War button masher. So,
yeah, we'll definitely keep playing it. I'm gonna definitely play some more XCOM this week and have a lot more to say on the next show, I suppose.
Yeah, I think on the next show we'll talk about XCOM 2 as well.
Yes, we'll get to that. There have been some more details released.
That's the reason that I assigned you XCOM is because I really wanted to talk about XCOM 2. I'm really excited for XCOM 2 because XCOM is one of those games like I don't sit there and play it for 8 hours at a time like some games, but I also have never felt burnt out on it. Like I've never reached a point where I'm like, I think I've played enough of this. Like it's a game that I can always just pick up and enjoy playing. All right. Yeah, well, I think that's it.
I guess that's all for this week. Yeah.
We complained enough about like
this was a pretty whiny episode.
The future of eSports and mobile games. So next week there will be trade-in. We are also, I wanted to mention this. I wanted to mention this at the beginning, but I forgot. We are toying around with the idea of the trade-in being a thing where it's every 2 weeks now.
Yes.
And we are thinking of alternating it so that 1 week we will assign each other different games. And then the next time we have the trade-in, we will do the same game, and we'll just switch off back and forth like that. And that'll keep things fresh. It'll keep us with a constant supply of games instead of like struggling to find games to assign each other. We can just pick a game and this is all real flexible. So like if we don't have any good ideas, we might just 2 weeks in a row do the same game or something like that. So it's all I don't want to like set everything in stone for the trade-in because I feel like if I do, then we're just going to get burnt out on it. Like when we were doing it every week.
We'll do what we've been doing. like we'll do what we've been doing and just kind of play it by ear, see what we like to do, see how it feels, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. And well, I guess that's pretty much all for this week. As always, thanks everybody for watching. The like 5 or 6 people that kind of came in at the end, awesome. And you can follow us on Twitter. It is at GNGN Podcast. You can tweet us ideas for games we should play, things you want us to talk about, whatever it is, or you can just tell us you love us or that you hate us. It's all good. We're tough. We can take it. And we'll have the website up at some point. It's coming. It's on the way. I know I've said it a lot, broken record, but it's the truth of the matter.
We're busy,
and of
guys.
Course,
we're
busy guys. We got jobs and also other video games to play.
Yeah.
Don't we all? And well, I guess that just about does it. Any parting words, Tony?
No. See you guys next week.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. And yeah, next week we're going to try and broadcast on our usual Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll give it a shot. Yep. And if there's any changes to that, by the way, we'll tweet. So subscribe. Follow us.
Yep. Yeah. I didn't tweet anything this week, but Matt ran over at work, and I just didn't feel like doing it super late, so we canceled last minute. So
like we said, we're playing it by ear. So
here we are.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, and have a great night.
Yep. See you guys next week.